Hello, it's Jack Tutor here of Attention Magazine. Welcome to Crucial Listening, the podcast where I speak with musicians and sound artists about 3 albums that are important to them. My guest this time is John Daniel, who's behind the project Forest Management, based in Chicago. John's music centers primarily at the moment anyway on sampling, samples that are modulated, drenched in echo, often heavily looped. And what you end up with is a music that sounds fabulous, listened to late at night on headphones, maybe going for a walk around the place that you live after dark. Once all the lights are out, everyone else is indoors, it's just you. You have that soft introspection, that blurry consciousness. John's sounds have this formless, sort of approximate feeling to them, like they're kind of unraveling or spilling slowly in all directions. There's a sort of placelessness to them, almost like a memory that's only being vaguely recollected, but at the same time you get this lucidity as well. So take a record like After Dark that John released late last year that centers on samples of Debussy, and you feel like you're reducing to the real essence of what that original music is about, the sort of emotional raw spirit. All of the ornamentation is stripped away and you just get that formless core to what that music is trying to say. It's fabulous. I had a really nice time chatting with John. We spoke shortly after he'd released a new split release with Kevin Drum on Reserve Matinee, one of John's labels, one of several that he's involved in. I thoroughly recommend checking out his music, especially as the nights draw in. You can go to forestmanagement.us for more information, and as always as well, head to attentionmagazine.co.uk/crucial listening for more information on John's picks and links to his music as well. Cool. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. I certainly did. John's a very thoughtful guy, had so much lovely stuff to say about these 3 excellent records. This is John Daniel, Forest Management, on Crucial Listening. Hello, John. Welcome to Crucial Listening.
Thanks for having me.
No trouble. So you've picked 3 important records for us to talk about. But first I want to touch on a couple of recent releases of your own. So let's start with the split with Kevin Drum, which came out on your own Reserve Matinee imprint in early October. I've been listening to that one, and that release feels so coherent to me when I'm listening to both pieces side by side. There's this sense that both pieces are kind of musically aware of each other as you're listening to them. Firstly, how did you come to work with Kevin on this release?
I got in contact with Kevin, I want to say 2 years ago. Had met him, seen him around at gigs, and just like, I don't actually remember how I got his email, to be honest. Might have asked him at one of those gigs or something, but yeah, we just had been talking on and off. But initially, I wanted to book him at a venue in Chicago, and a Kevin Drum performance is a very rare thing. And I just thought, why not? I lived in the city for a couple of years, just was curious, and had always been a huge fan of his stuff, and got back to me and, politely declined on the offer for the show, and I don't know, kind of moving forward with the releases in the label. We really just try to focus on Chicago music and Midwest music, at least right now. And so it just kind of came back into the picture. And so, yeah, I just hit him up and checked in, and what happened was I made my side first, and then sent it over to him, and he used that as like a starting point for his own piece. So, and then we just like, I called mine Torrent, and then he was like, well, he's like, he named his based off that too.
Right.
Trip. So yeah, I just kind of ended up, he fused it. Yeah. And then I took like the picture for the cover somewhere in Uptown. I got on a walk one night. Yeah. We just shipped those all out this past week. So yeah.
That makes so much sense. The fact that Kevin had been listening to yours in the generation of his own piece. I mean, were you in creating your piece? Was there an awareness when you were making it of maybe what Kevin does or what Kevin would potentially contribute? Like, were you reaching out from your side as well?
Yeah, I really had to like get over that because I was like really thinking way too much about, but also I guess what I was thinking too much about was just like what my shit was sounding like in terms of, I guess it had been a while since I've like had sat down and be like, I'm going to make a 15-minute like piece, so that was really kind of the challenge, I guess, getting back into that and getting back into that in 2020, it was like, it was a good challenge and a good like exercise for me. And I just kind of ended up like calling together material that I had already had sitting around, and then kind of like, just revamping it and really just kind of kept it simple. That was my conclusion. But yeah,
I'm intrigued to you talk a bit more about the challenges of generating like a 15-minute piece of music. 'Cause I think what strikes me about both your pieces is that there is this adherence to a premise like throughout both of them, but with these really gentle modulations going on which kind of move you on, but you still feel like you're within the same orbit. I mean, what is it about the extended duration that introduces challenges to generating a new piece of music?
Yeah, it really, I think it really like just the idea of time and just like messing with time, like really perception of time and like how long something's been going on, right? And like using loops, because I still work with loops also. So, but like I like to kind of also blur, like, like there's a loop going on and something that's just actual 15-minute recording, you know what I mean? Yeah. Kind of blurring the lines between those two layers as well. So then just kind of, mixing. When you get to the mixing stage and you're mixing tracks, like in this case, there's only a few or like a couple going on, but it's more, you have multiple like time frames and time lengths going on. And so then, that's kind of a good way to kind of fill that space, or to like introduce like an action or an activity, I guess, like a relationship between these sounds. It gives me something to work with. Like I'll have usually like when I am building a track, like maybe I'll have like 2 shorter loops and then like 1 longer loop or something. Right. And then and then of course there's like delay and other things, but starting from a real like basic, just using those as like their own like kind of instruments, I guess, and then just like, 15 minutes can actually fly by. Or if you're playing a live set, I've had to do actually a couple like hour-long live recordings, just kind of more like drifty, drone-based stuff. So I was also kind of working in that way, where I would just bring in these really long loops that had been kind of like stretched out. So it's like a 20-minute thing, but then you like bring it in, fade it in, fade it out. And like, just like kind of blending things together, because I think a lot of like, say, I mean, the only other example I could think of is like, something like harsh noise or something, where it's just kind of this could be this formless thing in a sense, and so, but I'm not really thinking about time when I'm listening to the harsh noise tape,
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just like a different, yeah. But it was definitely like just more so the, honestly, just coming up with just that initial set, that initial set of like loops or that initial set of elements, just because like coming up with new material, like in 2020 in general, has been like a challenge, I'd say. Yeah. So.
Any thoughts on why that is?
Yeah, I think I'm just really like distracted, and I see other people talking about it too, and that is helpful just to know, like definitely we're all feeling it, like just creatively. And like I'm working on this like film score right now. Pretty stoked about it. I've been starting to kind of match image to audio, and it's kind of totally slowed down on my end.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just really, because you don't want to rush things, and also, but it's just like there's a slower pace right now, and it is harder to stay focused and just staying off the internet.
Yeah,
just because and because we care, because we want to know what's the hell is going on, and but yeah, I do need to kind of carve out these more like studio session times right now, probably. But I live in my studio too, so it's like a
right.
real nice tiny thing.
Yeah. One other question I wanted to ask was about, I mean, obviously your last, I guess, full-length proper, I suppose, would be After Dark.
Yeah.
And, that came out, I guess, nearly a year ago now, but, basically another lifetime ago. I mean, do you have any reflections on how your perception of that material has changed now that you're kind of like a year on from that record? Has that distance generated any new reflections for you on your relationship with it?
Not particularly. Yeah, I kind of just moved on from that, like as soon as it dropped, because I kind of had finished it earlier in the year, and yeah, tried not to really think too much on it. Like the only thing I would say is like I definitely had in mind that I want to get back to like playing music with my hands, like
right.
Actually writing music again, like of how I started the project, just like playing notes on a MIDI controller, and going from there. And I've had synths here and there, so maybe I'll buy one soon, but just like a used FM synth or something. But just getting back to playing notes and like writing, getting more like material to edit and mix with later, and that's definitely going to be like the basis of my next record. So really, like sampling, I'm definitely still sampling all the time, and but now I'm definitely like looking forward to just kind of switching gears a bit.
In terms of stuff you're working on at the moment as well, it sounds like that you're also kind of mapping out a vinyl CD and literature imprint. Can you tell me anything about that?
Yeah, it's called SMA Editions, and it's just this thing I'm slowly building it right now. Nothing's coming out anytime soon, or I haven't even like announced it or anything. It's on Twitter, and I just kind of use that Twitter account to actually just like collect ideas and like follow people that are in Chicago that are doing interesting things related to film particularly. So I'm really like I'm just really curious about like film history here, which is another thing I've been studying. So when I speak of literature, I'm interested in like doing these kind of like film night types of things, and I was hoping like that'll be more of a possibility this year. But like just doing more, just other than music, just more like kind of fusing those two worlds together. Like maybe a friend writes a film book or something. about a certain director, something like that. Just and I also wanted to get into like reissues. I'm looking around for some reissues right now. There's a jazz label in Chicago that I'm going to be contacting soon because there's a lot of archival material out there, and so it's really just a matter of like knowing the channels that it goes through. But yeah, I just really want to like. There's a lot of older records out there that haven't been like reissued either. That are, I would at least like to try, and that's kind of more of what SNA Editions is going to be about, and really the other anybody that's listening to this that like knows my other projects, like they know that I have like 4 other labels, but
yes, yeah.
I'm really going to be kind of just folding. It's really just about focus to me. So it's like you can, and I guess I was inspired by like 2000s American Noise, where it's like. One dude has got like 20 labels, it's just like, yeah, it's really just more about like, what are you focusing on in the moment anyways, so it's like really, yeah. And with 2020, I'm also just been reconnecting with my roots and just like really feeling a real like healing power from getting into and listening to a lot of this jazz. So that's my focus. And my other label, Sequel, that's definitely like, I'm not going to be releasing anything else on that label, but it's just there, and I still have CDs from that label. Reserve Matinee will still be doing like tape releases. We have actually some LPs coming up that we're excited about. So just kind of doing it more by project, and like Reserve Matinee will be more so like just the cassettes and then an occasional LP, but we're going to kind of spread out the physical releases more. And then SNA Editions that I was just talking about, that's just kind of my like art history project that I'm really going to be trying to focus on completely if I'm not working on like my own stuff. So
great.
Yeah,
well, best of luck with getting that up and running.
Thanks.
Where's the best place for people to keep up to speed with what you're doing
in general? That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I just don't have I have a blog. I don't really update too often, forestmanagement.us, but honestly, like Twitter's a good way. Yeah, I don't know. It'll just come out. Honestly, I'm not too great with the communications right now. I'm just, yeah, I think I'm going to go dark on my Facebook page soon, it's kind of all scattered, right? It's just all this stuff scattered around. But anyways, I appreciate you asking.
No, yeah, sure, people can find it.
It'll come out. Yeah.
Great. Well, let's go to talking about your 3 important records now then, John. I mean, one question I tend to start with is about how you thought about the term important when you picked your selection. So was there a particular way that you interpreted that term when coming up with your list?
Yeah, definitely. It was just more, to me, like, I really just thought about the things that were very formidable for me, very, like, crucial, like, turning points, I guess, or just, like, records that I feel I was definitely, like, obsessed with at a particular time, even if I'm not listening to them now, just stuff from back in the day.
We can go in whichever order you like. I'll let you pick whichever one you talk about first. So give me the name of it and then tell me a bit about why it's important to you as well.
Yeah. It's kind of like a chronological order, actually. So the first one, I started with Charles Mingus, actually. And so Charles Mingus, Ken Burn Jazz. So it's like best of Charles Mingus compilation. The reason I chose a compilation is because I actually received that specific album or that release on a Burn CD from a neighbor of mine when I was like 11. And that was the very first CD that I ever owned.
Wow.
And like my mom, he gave it to my mom, and my mom gave it to me. I grew up in an apartment building, like three-floor apartment building in the burbs of Cleveland, and did not expect to, like, I don't know. I mean, I was like 11, but like, it's cool that found me. And then my neighbor was actually, he still lives there today. He's a jazz bassist. So yeah, we eventually like kept in touch, and years later actually like showed up and gave him like a record. So that was cool. But anyways,
so cool.
It was really, that did like preface me going into like high school and getting into like trying to get into the jazz band and stuff. I was actually, had always been like a drummer. So like started drums probably like 12, 13. And then, yeah, like jazz was just it really had me hooked, you know? And so I would like, my dad like only listened to he would like listen to like a lot of like smooth jazz and stuff. Like I would just mostly, like, I had this Charles Mingus CD, honestly, for like the first couple of years. And then I would like start to get into like other types of like music and stuff. But yeah, it's a special CD. I still have it. It's just like, yeah, like the first track, Haitian Fight Song. That's so I remember like first putting this one on, and it just like, it was really off-putting, or it was really like, it was way too weird. Way too like, I was like, why is this guy like, it sounds like somebody's like screaming, like, you know, he's just playing his trumpet, you know. I was like, this is just so like kind of dissonant. Like, I don't know if I was like, I want the drums to do more or something, or like, I didn't really like respect the drumming or something. I remember that being a thing, because I was like, you know, my first, I guess, introduction or whatever to like playing a drum kit was through like rock music or like,
right,
whatever. And so, you know, yeah, just really like seeing like jazz drumming and hearing it for the first time, and I didn't like how it challenged me, I guess, or how it didn't fit into, you know. So anyways, as you know, would be anybody else's first encounter of jazz, I suppose. But
yeah.
I don't know, or maybe not, but it's just but then it eventually grew on me, you know, and it just, the more I understood that it was actually just like this language or something, you know, and just also realizing who Charles Mingus was, you know. Yes, that's a really, really special one. There's some good ones on there too. Mood Indigo is a great song.
Yeah.
Really silky one.
Yeah. Pork Pie Hat's on there as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's an incredible
song.
song.
On there. Mm-hmm.
Man. Yeah.
But do you enjoy it?
I love it. Well, so there are, I think, 2 Mingus records that I'm familiar with, which is Mingus and Black Saint and Sinner Lady, which I think are both incredible. So obviously the tracks that appear on this I was already familiar with, but listening to the rest of it just made me want to spread out even further. I don't know what it is. There's something really sort of sweaty, kind of bloated, a lot of bends, a lot of rasps, a lot of screams. It's all in. Definitely. It's like sloshing over the side kind of thing.
Kind of got this New Orleans vibe at the time. Like, I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah.
Just kind of, and honestly, I haven't really studied up on Mingus too much. I should really, I mean, just like deeply, you know, just like his like childhood story and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. Really interesting. I'm really intrigued by the label that he used to run out of his like apartment. It's on Discog. It's like the Jazz Workshop. Yeah. Like,
cool.
Yeah, just this like, it just really limited runs, you know, mailing out of there. Just because like, yeah, he got to a point in his career where he wasn't really trying to mess with any like labels. He was getting gypped. Right. So he just kind of did stuff on his own. It's always, I think too, like his specific, like, I don't know, his like, there's this like flavor of it too, of jazz, which like, there are these kind of pretty like avant-garde like moments where they're just like, there's really unconventional insertions of like, you don't know, like a sound or like a, you know, something that is just kind of thrown in there. He kind of likes to throw things off every now and then a little, like, and just like the recording styles too. So I think that also is like, yeah, probably the recording styles as well. Just like hearing the whole, I was just listening to a room, you know, felt like, just like, you know, so that like to encounter that, I guess, outside of like the polished, super polished radio station, experience, like I think that's also kind of what broke me open, and makes sense that I ended up getting into noise or whatever. But
right. Yeah, this is an incredible first album to own,
oh yeah,
at 11, at the age that we are. I think you're a year older than myself, but for most people it's a Shaggy record or something. So that's quite amazing. I mean, you mentioned the fact that you were really off-put by it to begin with. So I presume, did you just persist because that was the only record you had? Like, obviously, in later times, you may have just gone, sod it, there's more stuff to listen to and this is not connecting. So what kept you going back in again?
Well, I should say, I enjoyed parts of it towards it was how do I say this? It was like sitting and waiting for a home cooked meal instead of just being able to go through the drive-through or something. And I wanted the drive-through at the time. I wanted the I don't know, how long, just like the first song alone, just how long that takes to kind of build up, and that kind of drove me insane a little bit. It was just like the tension and the complexities and just people vibing, which you don't always hear that unless you're, there's things in that recording that you can't see, so you don't hear it either.
Right.
It's just really wild, it's like and so I just all that stuff together, it just was like, I don't have time for that. You know what I mean? I just wasn't ready for that yet. So I don't know. But yeah, that's really the best way I feel like I could put that. I haven't really talked about this with anybody before either. It's kind of hard to put into words, but yeah, it's just, but it was still really good meal, right? Like a good, it was. And in fact, when I did listen, when I did let it take me there, that just made it that much more powerful, right? But there'd be times I would just straight up skip over certain parts of the songs just to get to because I was also really trying to learn. I think just drums were also kind of driving my curiosity, because I was trying to just start playing more and just have my pair of sticks with no drums, just air drumming, just getting into it, just getting going. And then eventually I would try to play at school or something, but I really wanted to get into the nitty gritty of what was, and so I was like, all right, let's move through this slow sax stuff, you know what I mean? But yeah.
What were your reference points prior to getting your first album? I've heard you talk about music in computer games being prominent at a certain point, but I don't know whether that was before or after. I mean, what was your kind of musical universe prior to getting this record?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was through, the video games I'd play. I remember that because that's in terms of being memorable. I grew up in church, so I also was listening to a lot of music my parents were playing in the car and at home, related church and CCM, as they call it. So the video games was really my parents were to me and my sister, oh, here you guys go. Here are these worlds, these portals you can enjoy, as long as you do homework or whatever, So we would just play together, and then I would just notice the game would be on, and I would just really enjoy the fact that this game was on in my room, and there was this soundtrack blasting out of the TV from it, and that was just having that a unique experience, I guess, with media, just the very first thing I could think of, right? So, but also it's a lot of that was electronic music, and parts of even the first Donkey Kong SNES, that's straight up ambient music. So, but you just kind of register that differently in your brain at the time, but I was kind of later to discovering a lot of bands, a lot of singers and artists.
Where did discovering Mingus take you in terms of your jazz journey? Like, what were your next touchstones?
Yeah, well, actually, so I just kind of went to the library. Like, my local library was the biggest source of new music at the time, honestly. Like, I was on the internet, and I would mostly, though, I'd just on the internet I'd find like electronic music. That was the first stuff I found, or I was like looking for. Like the AOL days, but like just like Dave Brubeck, just a lot of even Coltrane too. I was starting to listen to his, just like stuff that you'd find. Like, it was all, my library had a great like jazz section, so it was but it's mostly like, I would say like, jazz school scene.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. I passed over a lot of it, honestly. And again, and I held on to the Mingus CD, like that just existed in my like sphere, like kind of in its own space, to be honest. Like I didn't really mess with too many other like jazz records at the time. So,
right.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So I just had this. So that was the thing that I was able to come back to it, because it was like when I wanted to break from like Daft Punk or,
right.
just just pop in the Mingus fade.
John, let's go to your second important record now. If you can give me the name of it and a bit about why it's important to you as well.
Yeah, that would be Do Make Say Think, Goodbye Enemy, Airship, The Landlord is Dead. And I can't even tell you the year that came out because I'm not looking at my computer or anything yet.
2000, I think?
2000. That sounds right. Yeah. I mean, this is just like to me, like a seminal, right? Like 2000s post-rock record. Do Make Say Think. They are still based in Toronto. So yeah, I was mentioning this was kind of more like in a chronological order. So really, this is more sophomore year of high school, junior year of high school. I had started my first band. Met my buddy Adam Miltner in biology class in sophomore year, and like I would just like go in like the cafeteria, or he knew me from like 8th grade or something. He knew who I was, right? And we just like, I was just playing drums in the school band at this point, and he would like, I guess like see me playing I would like break into the band room during like lunch and just like play the drum set, or like say I was practicing for timpani because I was in the orchestra, but I'd actually just like rip in the kit or something. And he was like, Adam would come up to the window and like put his face in the window. Like kids would do that sometimes, and he was one of them. And so yeah, we eventually met like sophomore year of high school and started jamming. He was the first person I really like made music with, and like he played guitar and I would just play a kit in his like parents' basement. And we eventually started a band called Royal Waves with 2 other friends, Adam Smith and Nate Bishop. And yeah, so it was just really the first time I was like thinking about making music with other people, kind of getting outside of this internet world that I'd kind of like surrounded myself with, like earlier on, just logging out of the chat, just really being even more curious. And so thanks to Adam Miltner, and Smith, actually, like both those dudes showed me a lot of like new stuff. So like these bands like Do Make Say Think. So for me, it was like more of like I went that route And so I started to listen to a lot of post-rock music. So I was like, all right, well, you know, and then you get closer to like a place of like experimental art, you know, where it's like there are definitely there's do make say think pieces that are just like straight up like, you know, noise passages, you know. So like that was the true beginning, I would say, of just like, okay, now I have like these albums on my like computer, you know, and I'm like just listening to this stuff all the time. And I'm like, this is me, you know, it's like, I love this, like, I want to do this. So that's really at the time of that. And then, you know, graduating high school, I guess, just that whole like life change stuff, you know, so it's music that is, it's music you do hold on to through like kind of saying sayonara to your hometown or your, you know, just gonna, that's a great record. And I just can't recommend it enough. It's very, so I don't like we're using the word cinematic, but
it's hard to avoid.
It just, in terms of like, it's hard to not feel something with that one. And just how the chemistry, but you know, knowing how many people are in that group too, it's pretty awesome. And the fact that they have like 2 drummers. And so I was like loving that. And also, so it's like, it mixes the jazz with, you know, just like traditional rock or like whatever, just, it mixes it all together. And so I didn't end up making the jazz band in high school, and it all was too rigid to me anyways. And so it's like, and all of a sudden I'm starting this band and I'm like hearing bands like this and hearing the record like this. And it's like, well, yeah, of course. Like homie's just, you know, he's just hitting the ride cymbal on the 2 and 4, you know, because there's a second drummer. Like, that's perfect. Like, that's what I need. That's what I need to be. That's what I need to be focusing on, because, you know, forget this other stuff. Like, you know, that stuff's cool, you know. At the same time, it's just like not worrying so much, because like being on the drum line and stuff, like as a drummer, you're like worrying about your chops or your like how fast you play or like what, you know, your knowledge, music theory, etc. But this was like, wow, these guys they just have all these instruments together and they're just composing, you know.
For me, discovering stuff like this was really when I thought about patience within the context of rock music and how that could be utilized. Had you had much experience with, I mean, I suppose Mingus, there's a lot of that there as well, in terms of how he uses duration and how jazz generally can utilize long durations. But had you had any music that had kind of played with duration in this way within like a more of a rock context?
No, not really. I mean, outside of Do Make Say Think, you mean?
Yeah.
No. I mean, well, there are other, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm just like, no. Just because I don't want to like think too hard. But no, it's just, no, it really, so this is kind of, this opened up a whole like new zone for me, where I was definitely, I was now in search of like anything that was just out of the norm, right? And that like still sounded cool, you know. I was still kind of critical, I guess, or like, yeah. And so, gosh, long form though, durational, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I could list other post rock bands, but that's pretty much, you know what I mean. It kind of, because it wasn't until like I got back into electronic music with like, oh, okay, drone, like, I didn't know that was a thing, you know?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Great. So then it was just like, that was, but like, up until then though, it's like, yeah, there wasn't really, again, I was pretty bad at like record collecting at this time. I was not, you know, it wasn't until I, you know, basically like moved out of my parents, I just would kind of keep the same things over and just really digest them, you know what I mean? Like really, and then I was also just making my own music at this point, and then just not doing homework. But, yeah.
When you think back to listening to this record as a sophomore in high school, I mean, what does that listening experience look like to you? Like, what format are you listening to it on? Where are you? What are you doing? Like, what's the prominent memory that comes to mind there?
Yeah, this was a CD. Definitely. This is like CD, like driving my parents' PT Cruiser.
Nice.
Senior privileges to Chipotle. And yeah, it's pretty much that's the vibe. And yeah, just because like that became a thing for me too, where I'm just driving, I'm fielding music through like driving, and so like that's just like I don't know, it's just like this landscape vibe to it like now, and I'm like that's how I would just like listen to music all the time, just driving around. And Cleveland had a great like park system, and so yeah, I don't know, just driving through like
Nice.
these beautiful zones. So yeah, that's really CDs were big, and of course those are harder to be able to play on the go now, but I definitely do miss those.
Yeah. It's been nice to see you talk about CD within the context of your own labels as like a format that you're still playing with. Do you think
definitely.
that you feel connected to them because of your memories with CDs, or what is it about CDs that you like?
I think it's definitely a connection to the memory, and just having they've just always been there. And I also just like the format, and I do like how you can have more expansive art than like a cassette, or you have more of a capacity, for it. And but I think, and it's cool to see, and I am excited. There's a lot of like new CD labels happening now, which is great, and I'm really stoked that people are starting up new stuff too. So, but yeah, I really like with the sequel. That would just seem like the right thing to do. Reserve Matinee, I'm happy to have like a tape label. Like that's really just wanted to, just have some kind of like cassette. And then, the getting into the vinyl thing, it's like a, Reserve Matinee, we're about to like drop our first vinyl LP. So once that happens, then I'll start like bringing vinyl into the fold. But yeah, as of right now, it's been just the discs. Yeah.
How has the process been of getting into vinyl? Has that gone smoothly?
Yeah, it's been good. I thankfully had been somewhat involved with like the process just through other projects. But like this is my first time putting out someone else's record, and also like the first time working with this plant in Chicago, but they're excellent, and they've made it super easy for us. It's like a local plant called Smashed Plastic. And yeah, they do more like limited runs, so we're just doing like 250 for this first run. So yeah, it hasn't been too bad. So we're just waiting for the test pressings, and then kind of go from there. But there's a lot more to like obviously like keep in mind than with like CDs or tapes. You got to think about the labels, got to think about the jackets, and making sure the art's like not, there's enough bleed, that's the kind of, those are the things I get more tripped up about earlier on with the proofs and stuff, but that's all taken care of. So
nice.
It's just like waiting now. Yeah.
Wicked. Well, let's talk about your third record then, John. Yeah. As you say, it's by Stars of the Lid. If you could tell me what it is and a bit about it as well. Yeah.
So this is Avec Laudanum, and came out in 1999, which for some reason, like a lot of my favorite records came out in 1999. But like, this is Stars of the Lid, and a duo from Austin, Texas. And they did make this one like long distance. And so this record, so it came out in 99, but of course I wasn't listening to this until, this is like, I'm about to like drop out of college at this point, I think. or it's like 2000, 2012, around there. 2011, it was probably earlier the first time. So Stars of the Lid was a really like potent, I would say, discovery for me, and that, or like a really odd too. It was just, it took me a while to, you just kind of, when you're getting into like anything, you kind of see things in your periphery, but you're not yet really like investigating everything yet.
Yep.
So I was just like, I was like, wow, I was really taken by their art, and I was taken by their name, and I was taken by their titles. I was just like really intrigued. But it kind of took me like, I feel like a couple of years to just like dive in. So, but I heard snippets here and there, and I liked what I heard. I just remember it was just like, wow, this is like slower than anything I've ever heard. And I was like, I was still like jamming my post rock at the time, you know what I mean? It's just like, but it's like, no, really though. It's like, it was really, I definitely took like a very kind of typical, like, I don't know, just kind of going this direction of timbre or something, but, I eventually bought this on vinyl. And yeah, it just really, as a group, they definitely, I don't know, they're probably one of my biggest influences in forest management. Even like the name, is inspired by like just their vibe and just being in that universe, I guess, so I was a huge Cranky nerd, like early in college. And this is like, I'm about to just get, dunked with a bunch of electronic music and noise music, and started to get involved in Cleveland, started to go out to like gigs, started to like open for people, like playing gigs, and just like self-released my first tape in 2012. And so that was like kind of just the floodgates, I guess, of stuff. But really before that, 2010, 2011 is probably when I was really beginning to engage as a listener on a deeper level with, just a lot of this music. And so, I mean, just the idea of having like a guitar as an instrument, as a bass instrument, and then they've got like a synthesizer, and then they use 4-track, and then that was just, I'm sure for a lot of people, it's really, I know they weren't the only ones to do that in art, but that just happened to come my way, and it was perfect timing. So, at that point I was it's just like, wow. And it's really hard to talk about the music itself. I mean, really, it's just, you just have to listen to it. It's really great night music. All I can say, it's a night record for me.
Yes.
Yeah. But beyond that, I have no other words. It's just, it's really good. Just the tones on just the pure tones. And the final piece, I Will Surround You, is my favorite Stars of the Lid track of all time. So it's definitely been an influence on my own music as well, like solo music. So, like when you're in an art museum and you're and it's a very comprehensive place, and you kind of eventually arrive in an area where there's like resonance, and there will be like more than one of those, you know what I mean? But there's always that one spot where you're just like, well, I could just sit here for, forever. And that's kind of musically, that was that moment for me. And I'm just really grateful to even have been able to express that my own way, and I just encourage that for everyone. It's like, because you see people getting bent out of shape over like, because they get into something, not because like it's something that like drew them, but like it's someone else told them to, or like it's based on someone else's experience. So, and that could be fine too, but that's the only thing I would say is, I'm just grateful to have had that. And that's,
I'm intrigued that you picked this record. I think maybe for quite a lot of people, and perhaps maybe not for quite a lot of people, but just in terms of the way that I've ingested Stars of the Lid and talked to people who are into that band, it feels like that the kind of attention gets put on those last two full lengths they put out, right? That seems to be in the kind of cultural conversation. They unfortunately eclipse a lot of their work, and certainly where in terms of the way that I got into them, it was through Tired Sounds and their refinement.
Yeah. That got them into Rolling Stone.
Right, yeah, that's probably it, isn't it? That's kind of answered why those two are top of the pile. But is there a reason that you went with Avec Laudanum? Is that the first one you heard, or is that just the one that juts out for you because you enjoy it more?
Yeah, the first one I heard, I believe, was Tired Sounds, but which is, I would also list as, when one of the, I don't know, more influential ones for me. But this one, Avec Laudanum, is just, in terms of its vibe, and in terms of every single track, every minute on the record just really hitting hard for me. That's definitely the one. I like its kind of like brevity too. It's not a huge like symphony kind of thing. It's just I like how it kind of signs in and then signs off, and kind of but it's really slick in a sense, in that way, how it does it. And I love that. And that really, just to be candid, that's really, I mean, in terms of sequencing too, to get more technical, I kind of more like that really helped frame just ideas for how you could sequence a record, how you could sequence like an LP. So when I did receive the opportunity to do that one day, like years later, I was able to, I like how they like the first track of the B-side, Dust Breeding. Yeah, just how that's all done. I don't know. So.
Yeah, I think your point about brevity is really interesting, because I think that's definitely comes to light even more so in the advent of the two other works. I think certainly that's coloured how I perceive Avec Laudanum, is knowing what happened to Stars of the Lid after this record, right? It's like you have these sprawling, very orchestrally woven statements that come out afterwards, and suddenly Avec Laudanum looks like this, as you say, like brief, concise statement, which is almost knowingly absent of those more broader, grander strokes. It sort of slinks round the periphery rather than filling up and welling up in the center, which I was really struck by this album. I'd not actually heard it. I think again it's like a little moon just sort of tucked behind the planets of those last two records,
Yeah, exactly. It's a really nice, and as I was mentioning earlier with like the driving too, it's like, man, that also just makes me think of like empty libraries, and I don't know. And you just drive around like the campuses of the universities. But I do like their extended albums also. I also like kind of too, like, and if you read about how they make some of their recordings, and I don't know, just noticing it, just like listening to Adam talk, it's can seemingly be they're just very, like when you're incorporating something like 4-track, for example, there's going to be imperfections, right? So it's kind of this real kind of lax vibe, right? And I really also was drawn to that too, because a lot of the initial, I guess they say ambient music I was listening to, it did seem to have this kind of like real like seriousness to it, right? And I was just like, well,
yes.
I kind of liked how Stars they were just more just chill about things, but also like make fun of themselves sometimes, or just have funny titles, and I don't know exactly how long it took them to make this particular record, you know what I mean? But I wouldn't be surprised if like some of these tracks were just like no problem, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, or just like done in one night, maybe not. I'm just projecting, but it's really just like, but that's the vibe that I'm getting at here. It's just like, yeah, like not everything has to be this like full trip, and like these types of deep spaces can exist in the same containers that like say like a pop record could, or like
Right.
any other type of like shorter brief experience in life, and it's okay to get deep for a minute, and then just pull out, or whatever, get back out,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really essential one, and yeah, there's not much else I could say about it.
No, fair. I mean, one thing you mentioned it as well, but was this one? I presume this one was also made when they were living in two different cities and mailing DAT tapes to each other, right? In order to put the material down, which sounds, oh my gosh, like the patience, obviously looking back retrospectively from where we are now seems like a really, I think it's beautiful to think about, but also very labored way to go about making a record, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and having like, I think they had like the DAT tapes too, like working with DAT, and even like when I got started, it was just through, I was using Ableton, so just not having, definitely like, it is an interesting time too, like around 99, it's like, there's laptop music is kind of really, there's this hybrid software analog environment all of a sudden,
Right.
Yeah, but it's like, it's pretty new still at that point, at least for composition and sound. So I love a lot of those sounds from that time too. And there's a good amount of like, kind of like digital degradation, or like, it's not quite, it's a little rough around the edges, and a lot of this like, it's software programs that don't even exist anymore, Some really, really nice sounds. 'Cause a lot of the sounds just are really nice. I don't know, just in terms of like how they were constructed, where a lot of, today, like a lot of things are just engineered differently,
Totally.
Won't get into all that, but just the palette of the software sounds too.
Yeah, that's a nice point. I think it kind of all lends for me to this sense of like approximation about a record like this, where you've got the sounds pulled from two different spaces, also disparate moments in time, like one moment of time followed over another, and as you say, sort of like a gradually budding digital aptitude, which isn't at a point where you can cull the unwanted or the sound of not being quite sure how to kind of incorporate this new language into the music. You get this very sort of non-spatialized, non-exact, beautifully imprecise music. This seems like very this seems to really, really encapsulate that kind of sensation. I mean, also arriving at the cusp of a millennium as well. You've got this boundary crossing again, this real sprawl going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like that mess, like this like digital mess kind of thing that was happening. And there's also a lot of reflection because at the turn of the millennium.
Mm-hmm.
And really fascinated by that. Like, and it really, nobody was talking about like Deconstructed Club at the time. Like,
no.
Yeah, it was just a different time, right?
John, this has been wicked. Thank you so much for talking through, both your current and recent projects, but also these three records. I've had a really nice time talking about them.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you. Yeah, thanks for letting me do this, and it's been good to just blab on about these things. I hope it was informative for people, and definitely check them out. Like, as much as I can talk shit about things, like, it's just better. They're just better to be listened to with no words, you know. No, it's been really good though, and it's like this time of year is actually when I would be revisiting all of these, pretty much.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to go back into the stories, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to checking out the other ones that you have going on. So yeah.
Well, thank you once again, John, and to everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.